And speaking of game time, I was doing some digging, and you can take 283 full here. Through 2 weeks of the season, the Browns have been called for 24 penalties. That's most in the NFL. They have 164 penalty yards, fourth in the NFL. Their 6 holding calls ranks first, and from a defensive standpoint, their 4 offsides calls through 2 games also ranks first. Dustin, is it a coaching issue? Is it a player issue? How do you clean up these penalty issues 2 weeks into the season? Discipline? Is it something you can practice? Take us inside the coach's war room, the practice field.
Coaches don't have a problem with aggressive penalties. You know, when you're if it's a pass interference call, if it's a illegal contact, you know, things that happen that you're fine with. But the things that you can't deal with as a coach and as a player really are the pre-snap penalties, the illegal shifts. Yeah. You know,
jumping.
You know, false starts. Those are the delay games.
How would you characterize the majority of the Browns' penalties this year? Aggressive or dumb?
I mean, listen, you played offensive line, Garrett. I mean, you know how they could call holding like every play. The egregious ones they try to call, but I don't know. I mean, the holding to me, some of it has to do with the fact that you're playing with some backups, you know, and those guys
had a kicker go past the 50 it cost the Browns.
Yeah, and you played against some really good pass rushers the first couple of games, and I think our line has done a decent job trying to hold up. But I mean, those are tough. The holding calls, offsides, you can't have it. Certainly in certain. Yeah. I mean, you go from 2nd and 10 to 2nd and 5. It's a big deal.
Huge deal.
Yeah, the one that really got me was the offsides. I forget who did it. It was in the it was on the drive.
It was Miles.
Miles had a couple.
Miles.
He had 2 against Jacksonville.
And I think, what's the name? Alex Wright had one. And it's 2nd and 18, right? You don't need a good start on your jump on 2nd and 18. No. You don't need to jump the snap on that. It's 18. You know what's coming, right? Like, so when you give those guys 5 yards back and become 2nd and 13, is that still 2nd and long? Yes, but now you give them another down to get more yards or to make it more manageable to get it on 3rd down. And it just didn't make any sense. I think a lot of this comes from this too. I really believe that because those guys didn't play during the preseason and because they didn't play some of the OTAs, our coaches used to tell us conditioning can make cowards out of everybody. Yeah. And meaning that when you are not in game shape, the first thing that goes is your mental capacity to think on and run. Instead of moving your feet, you get lazy and you grab. Instead of watching the snap count and getting off on it, now you're trying to get a little extra advantage. Instead of understanding where you're supposed to be on your shifts and motions, and when you line up, now the tackle lines up in the backfield because he's sucking air right now and worried about Josh Allen or a pass rusher in front of him. All these different things are things that have to do with your level of conditioning and a level of sharpness. And I think, for better or worse, the Browns, for lack of better terms, are a team that looks like they're playing preseason games in certain aspects. Now, it got dramatically better. They always talk about the biggest improvements from week 1 to week 2 for most teams. And they did get better at a lot of places. But I think the penalties are they come down to the fact that guys haven't played around each other. Guys are maybe working themselves into game shape. And that sloppiness comes through at the most inopportune times, especially when your offense or defense is in big-time situations.
Yeah, the penalties got worse. They had more penalties. They had 100 yards.
100 yards. 13 penalties, 100 yards.
You know, I don't know how you win a game when you give up 100
You spot a team 100 yards.
100. You gave them a length of a field.
Yeah, a lot of times teams like score. They have like 350 yards of total offense a game, and that's like a pretty good number, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're giving them 450.
Add 100 to it.
You usually don't win. That's why, there were a lot of things. I had said this Monday. If you just look at the 3rd down conversions and the penalties.
How do you win? I don't even know how
That's an L.
And you score 1 touchdown.
That's right. That is 100 times out of 100. Right. That's an L. But not,
What saved them is this. We look at 3 things. Pretty much every team does. Turnovers, special teams, and penalties.
Yeah.
So they had 100 yards of penalties, but the thing that saved them, no turnovers.
Right.
If you get 1 turnover there, you're done. That game is over, you lose. Special teams, they were able to punt and pin them down deep, play complementary football. That helped them out. But when you're playing good teams and when you're going to get to a point in a year, you can't throw away that many yards because you're not going to beat big teams. You're not going to hold certain quarterbacks to 3 points. They're going to go down and get a touchdown, or you're going to have an opportunity to have a big play, a turnover. That's the most. It makes me sick to my stomach because now I'm almost like conditioned to look for a flag.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when there's a big run. I'm
I
like,
do too. I'm like, where's the flag?
Where's the flag? I'm just waiting for guys like Dustin when he calls in the game.
Honestly, man, even when I do games, I big play, I'm like, okay, look back to line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
we had a call in my game on Saturday that was a holding. No, excuse me, it was a touchdown, a long 80-yard touchdown, 70-yard touchdown. Gets called back for legal man downfield, a lineman inconsequential to the play, just kind of like takes an extra step, and just kind of like watching the play go down the field. Flag. I'm like, dude, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Now,
that's ridiculous.
The penalties disrupt the flow of the game. I know they got to make these calls that are egregious, but why every ticky-tack call? It's not aesthetically pleasing to watch.
It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. I think it was Sunday night's game. So it was, I think, an exclusive window game. And I'm watching it, and I think there were 4 plays in a row where there were penalties. And at some point,
It was the Bears-Texans.
Bears-Texans. That's right.
You know what also sucks, guys?
It's unwatchable. It slows everything down.
The thing that stinks too is that when they call a flag on third down, it's like teams get these bailed out all the time.
Yeah.
Did you guys read the stat this week about how many pass interferences have been called on touchdowns? Let me look this up. It was the Patrick Mahomes. Did I drop that in our chat?
You sent it to us. It was debunked a little bit by Bill Barnwell. Just a heads up.
Okay, can you clean that up for me? Because I didn't fact check it. I just looked at it and I thought, wow, that seems like an unbelievable number to me.
I'm going to read this from Bill Barnwell's thread, and then I want to get back to this because I do have a question. So the number was he's thrown 18 interceptions since 2018 that have been called back via penalty.
Okay.
Most in the league.
That seems like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He has thrown 3,608 pass attempts since 2018. By far the most in football. Only one quarterback's within 300. So most attempts, most interceptions. He also leads the NFL since 2018, according to Bill Barnwell, in passes completed for exactly 13 yards, yards on slants, and another completely irrelevant slant, which is Yak gained on screens thrown 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So Barnwell says, no surprise that he also leads the league in overturned INTs. When you look at the penalties that were called on his interceptions, 8 of those 17, so just under 50, were on offsides calls, where Mahomes just threw it up free play.
Yeah.
So 8 of 17.
That's just being smart, though. You're just rolling the dice when you know you've got a free play. Aaron Rodgers does that all the time.
Yep. So there's 8 others that were there was a defensive penalty, defensive pass interference, roughing the passer, illegal contact, excuse me. So 8 of 3,608 pass attempts have been called back for penalties during the play.
Yeah.
Which is a Minimowski percentage.
It is.
So
small.
it looks cool in a tweet.
Yeah.
When you actually break it down, it's not nearly as...
To your question, Mike, about the penalties, and I'm glad you brought up Belichick, because when I was listening to Belichick, I just remember thinking to myself, his teams were generally clean. His teams didn't
That was a
commit
mantra, yeah.
a lot of penalties.
Don't beat yourself was his
Don't
thing.
kill us with your stupidity. And it was interesting because on the touchdown to, was it Drake London? I'm trying to think, it was early when he was on. There was a touchdown.
Oh, and he did the machine gun thing?
And he did the machine gun and got penalized, and you could just hear the disgust.
They had to kick like a 55-yard PAT.
For the extra point.
Yeah.
And you could hear him say, you could hear it in his voice how he has zero tolerance for it. And I wonder if there's any cause and effect between clean teams that are coached by guys that just drill into their heads, this is not going to be tolerated. You're going to be on the bench. And teams that have high penalties, and they've got a super nice head coach like Kevin Stefanski, and there doesn't seem to be any ramifications for one dumb penalty after another.
Hey, guys, I didn't see it in the college level. Like the machine gun celebrations, they have a memo. They're not letting you get that off, bro.
Nor should they.
They're not letting you get that off, dog. Like, I see in college, people is pulling out the Yosemite Sams, bro. They is like, listen, no, we're not. And by the way, it takes a little bit longer for the refs and the culture to pick up what you're doing.
Sure.
And then somebody was like, oh, so that's what they're doing. That's what that celebration means. Yeah. Nope. We're not letting you get.
I mean, I think that's like actually, I think it's way worse than the like the.
I do too.
Remember when we
the throat
was
slash people?
The throat slash
was like, oh my god, they did the throat slash.
The throat slash was prevalent. Like 2000 and 2005.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore. They was
all
like,
it meant was done.
Yeah, you're finished. There's like
done.
No. I'm like, man, what happened to the Second Amendment? I just want to shoot my machine gun in the stadium. No. we
don't need that.
Leave it to G. Bush. I told you to stop slipping politics. I'm just joking.
Man, Anthony Richardson couldn't even go by AR-15 anymore.
No, he's out of here. Don't bump stocks. No.
As you guys were talking, I just looked something up. Since Stefanski took over as the head coach of the Browns in 2020, this is where the Browns have ranked in total team penalties each of the last 4
Dying
seasons.
to hear this.
This is actually, I didn't know this before. I just looked this up, but I'm curious.
I'm glad you did because I wondered.
So in 2020, Stefanski's first year, they finished 8th with 100 penalties in the season. The
8th
Cardinals,
worst or 8th best?
The 8th most. So
8th most.
These are in terms of most penalties.
Okay.
8th
so
most,
that's the top 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Cardinals had 113 in 2020. That was the most. The Browns had the 8th most with 100. In 2021, the Cowboys led the NFL with 127 penalties. The Browns were 7th with 112.
Again, top 25%.
2022, the Cardinals, 118 penalties. Again, the Browns, let me just do my math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They finished 11th, 102.
Okay.
2023.
So top 33%.
They finished 3rd with 115 penalties.
Wow.
Tied for 2nd, technically, actually. The Jets had 124. The Cowboys and Browns both at 115.
Who had the most? 124?
The Jets. And then this year, through 2 weeks of the season, very early,
okay,
the Browns have 24. The Steelers are 2nd with 19.
What do you guys make of this? Because to me, that's a large enough sample size. That's 5 years. It's 4+ seasons. And
11th is the lowest they've been in terms of total.
They've been in the worst 33% for all of the seasons. And for 3 of those, they were in the top 25 worst percentage.
Correct.
That, to me, is, once can happen, twice is a trend, 3 times is a problem, right?
Right.
That needs to be cleaned up because it's going to end up costing them a game or 2 at some point in the season because of a stupid penalty.
I'll say this. I don't think that Stefanski's not coaching it or it doesn't bother him. Clearly it does. I mean, no coach wants to give up free yards and put yourself in a position to all of a sudden not get off the field because of a penalty or you keep a drive alive for the opposition. I mean, he wants the team to be more disciplined, but I also think that there are certain coaches that just aren't as mean, aren't as whatever, like don't get on you as much about a penalty. And like, can you imagine playing for Bill Belichick and jumping off sides?
The fear of God is petrified.
Dude, I have a buddy of mine who played for Belichick in New England, and he was a punt returner, and he had some struggles, right, with the punt returns, and like they benched him and didn't talk to him.
Yeah,
like
they isolate you.
Like walk down the hallway and like people like turn their, like you know how baseball players do when a guy gets a home run, they just turn. That's what they did to this kid who I know, and I'm like, damn, man, that's why everyone's scared walking around that building.
See, now I think I've talked about this on the show before. I worked for the Patriots for the year they lost Super Bowl, the Eagles. I did their offseason.
05.
Yeah, no.
05.
17. That was the Nick Foles year.
Oh,
yeah, that year.
Well, they did lose the Patriots in 05.
Yeah, Patriots lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles in Minneapolis, and I had a chance to work that entire offseason with their digital network, hosting. They did a 24-hour network. It was crazy what they did. But I mostly did it because I wanted to see the inner workings of the Patriots. Like, what makes this the best organization in football? And it was funny. I got to know a lot of people in management really, really well. And I asked a million questions. Every night at dinner, I was asking questions. They were probably glad the thing was over because they didn't have to answer my questions anymore. But the one thing I asked about is the level of expectation Because that's the one thing I noticed right away was we don't have anybody in our organization at any position. I don't care what it is. The guy that stripes our fields in practice, he's the best in the business. I'm like, what?
Best striper.
How do you even determine that? But what everybody said, and it emanates from Kraft, not from Belichick.
Right.
Mr. Kraft has a way that he wants things done. And not necessarily in specifics, but in results. And if he doesn't see results, it's a results-oriented business. God, more than anything else, perhaps, there's a scoreboard. And if you're not up to the organization standards, before they just kick you to the curb, maybe it'll be on Christmas Eve. Bill's done that.
Yeah.
Before he does that, there is a process that they go through of isolation. And more than anything else, I want to see how this person reacts. Are they mentally tough enough to handle our level of expectations and our commitment to winning? And one of the ways they would do that, it almost sounds like waterboarding, but you're exactly right. You're persona non grata. You're there. You're taking up space.
You're not part of us.
But you're not us. And now you have to prove, with the pressure of the entire organization looking at you.
It's like a fraternity, man. They're like
It's
like hazing or something.
A cult. It's almost like a cult.
That is, someone would call that mental abuse, but someone would call it that's just how football goes.
And listen, there wasn't
right
now. I'm sure there were people in the organization that were like, "Man, this isn't for me." We've heard guys leave the Patriots and say,
"I can't do it.
That's not fun." And then we've also heard, and Vrabel was big on this. Vrabel, guys that I worked with at ESPN, Teddy Bruschi was probably the leader of the club. Anybody that had anything negative to say about their time with the Patriots was soft, weak, and didn't belong there. And so that mental test that they exert on you, particularly when you're not doing well, that's the final test.
Think about it.
If you fail, you're gone, and they don't care that you're gone.
That's how Randy Moss got his career back. Like, people don't understand. Before Randy Moss got to, like, he was known as, like, he went for I think he was at the 49ers.
Oakland.
Oakland, and then the Patriots picked him up, and people thought that Randy Moss wasn't going to last. They're like, oh, Randy, he ain't going to do this. He's not going to be able to stand. And all of a sudden, he got in there with Brady and Belichick. And not only did he stand it, he thrived in it.
They rewrote the offensive record book.
And it was just different. If I was the Browns, what I would do is this. And I always hated doing this, Dustin. I don't know how you feel about it. As a player, when you make a penalty, and after you make that penalty, the coach says, "Come out," that's the most embarrassing thing in the world.
It is.
Because you got to run across the field. Everyone knows that you made that mistake.
It's a walk of shame.
And it's definitely
but
a walk of shame.
do you do that with Myles Garrett if he jumps off sides on 3rd and inches?
Watch this.
Inside the 10 with the game on the line? You can't.
That's how you know. Listen, that's how you know if you're about that life or not.
All right, okay.
If you're about
Listen, I like it.
If you're about that life and your center is holding.
No players above the team.
Hey, come on out. Hey, Ethan, Nick Harris, go in. I got you. And if it's egregious enough, you're done for the series.
Justin, would that cut down on penalties?
Yeah, I mean, I think the embarrassment of that would certainly have an impact on the players, and the other players would see it and deter you from losing focus. And that's all it is. These pre-snap penalties are it's focus. It's not.
Now, sometimes there's good penalties too. Like there were off or holding penalties where if the lineman is doing the mental gymnastics quickly enough, and he's saying, "Oh my God, I'm beat badly, and my quarterback is
protect your quarterback.
He has his blind side exposed." It's worth the 10 yards sometimes to reach out and grab him just to keep your quarterback alive.
100%.
But in most cases, it kills the team.
Greg Popovich used to say this. He said, Tim Duncan was like his best player. And he said, if you're able to hold your best player accountable, then none of the other subordinates even think about doing it. Because if Tim Duncan come here, Tim, and he's cussing Tim Duncan out. What the heck is Tony Parker about to get?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
All of it.
Hey, Mike, I'm just out of curiosity. Over the last 5 years, I know you had the info up on the most penalized teams. Is there a team that's the good version of what we are? So, in other words, over the last 5 years, they've been amongst the least penalized teams in the league.
I'll run through it real quick.
Yeah.
2020, the Patriots, least penalized team in the league. The Rams were the second least.
Oh, and look at the success of those teams in that year.
2021, The Rams were third least penalized.
Interesting.
Patriots, bottom 10. I'm not going to count because we have John getting ready. But they're near the bottom of the list.
When you say bottom, least penalized.
Least penalized.
Okay.
Rams, second least penalized in 22. So the Rams,
So there is a thread here, a trend that the Rams are one of the most disciplined teams in the
all
league.
4 years that we've tracked,
Yeah.
2020 through 2023, the Rams have been in the lower end of the bottom 10. So
Okay, so
between
that's interesting.
22nd, 32nd. Last thing real quick, I saw in the chat, someone asked me for the full breakdown of the Browns penalties so far.
Yeah.
This is the 24 that I can tell you according to Football Database, which tracks this. 24 penalties leads the league. They have 2 false starts, 6 offensive holding calls, which is the most in football, 4 offsides calls from a defensive standpoint. That's the most in football. 2 defensive holdings, and then 10 in the other category. I don't
Right.
know exactly what it is. They don't break it down any further.
Sure.
But offsides holding the Browns.
Well, we've had a
first and
procedure.
second.
I know we've had